Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So here's the deal, y'all. Sadly enough, there is a double standard that ladies have. And gentlemen, I think it's about time you apply the same double standard. First, let me give a shout out to Saad Imam for bringing this up. He has a podcast called Amu Yum Yum. And in that podcast, today's episode this morning, my time, last night, you all's time, it was entitled Landing on the Moon, being the first guy to treat a woman right. He brought up something important. That is that men who get with women that have been treated badly by previous men don't start off at zero. They start off in trouble. He's absolutely right. Whatever some other men did to her is your fault in many cases. You're not allowed to do the same thing to women. I'm not. I'm not allowed to do this to my wife, and I should not be. That's wrong. I can't blame my wife for something some other women did before. By the same token, I have to tell I likewise have to tell men, you know what, gentlemen? Don't forget that Melanie King said this, and that Donovan Sharp's girlfriend Devin said this, that when they know a woman has mistreated you before, they don't think in their mind, let me step up and be the woman that doesn't do that. They don't even understand. They did not say to you that it doesn't go through women's mind to step up and be the one that treats you well. They said that women don't even think, let me be the first one to step up and not do what these previous women did. Well, they're indirectly telling you. They're directly telling you what they said. They're indirectly telling you that what these women think is, if she did it, damn it, I can too. And I'm going to, because that's what he deserves. See, Russell Wilson's proof of this. BGS knows more about the situation than we do, and he's right. By the same token, and others that understand that their situation is not all it seems to be on the surface, but there are elements in there that we know we can't deal with ourselves. See, financially, it's not going to be the same loss to him as it would be for most of us. But keep this in mind, too. His first wife cheated. He left her. He didn't stay. He didn't simp. He left her. But guess what? As far as sisters see, he's still the kind of man that you cheat on. That's how they view it. So what he did was right. He left her. But now we see that Sierra, who took photographs with Future, conservatively dressed, standing either straight up or just barely leaning away from Future, now takes photographs with him leaning further away, more consistently, wearing less while he leans in towards her. That's clear to me. She may not want to go back to Future, but she valued Future more than she currently values Russell. And that's bad enough. That right there is bad enough. Even if she would not go back to Future, and I don't think she would. It's still bad enough. Matter of fact, the guy that imprinted on her was similar to Russell. She still went and got a re-imprint from these other guys, the ones that had more of an itness persona, and they ain't even itness. Future didn't start his life off as an itness. He learned to cultivate that persona for his career. Russell doesn't even fake it, and he's actually in better shape. You see, But the inward, the idness that Russell is not, cannot compete in her mind with the idness Future cultivated for a public image. So she shows off too much to everybody else but him. That part is clear. She's cognitively making smart choices, but emotionally speaking, she still has that ratchet in her. And she didn't even grow up that way. That's because the sisterhood, the hyenocracy, is in her head, competing with her own thoughts and winning. She's not understanding that the best thing to do is to do exactly for Russell what she was willing to do for Future in the beginning. Remember, she called off the engagement with Future. She did that. Keep that in mind. Some would say, well, if she's making a smart choice, then why are you worried about what she feels? Well, because what she feels is wrong. That's why. Because her brain is still letting the heart compete. And that's not what you're supposed to do. We have a heart for a reason. The human beings are an emotional species, men and women alike. We have emotions, but the emotions are not to compete with the heart. They are to fut the shuck up when they're wrong. End of. And the brain is what futs them to shuck up. So that being said, these ladies told you, Melanie King and Devin, sat up and said to you that what they know another woman did, they want to do. The worst they know another woman did is what they want to do. That just tells you they want to do the worst thing, period. And they're going to do the worst they can get away with. And they demand to get away with whatever some other lady got away with. And unfortunately, sometimes they will determine what you got away with based on how you look and not even based on how you reacted when she did it. That's the messed up thing. See, I don't wear the clothing of the people local here. I do not wear Saudi thobes. I absolutely will not. I think their design is one of the dumbest designs in a hot country. If I was going to wear one, I would wear the Sudanese or the Omani and Emirati thobe that doesn't have a neck. It's too hot for that. Plus, they wear theirs too tight. I don't like that. If you held up one of their thobes and offered it to me, I'd push it away. I wouldn't just decline. I would push it away because of how the design is. Man, shuck that fit. Give me a looser fitting with thobe without a neck like they wear in Oman or the Emirates or like the ones they wear in Sudan. Now, I say that for a reason. Since I dress like I'm still in the States, when I move around, there are times, I've told you all, when I speak Arabic to people and they look at me and say, I don't know English. They didn't listen with their ears, they listened with their eyes. And because the IQ here on average is pretty low, a lot of people do this. And it's not, I'm not only talking about locals, Arabs in general do that. So that's what they'll do. And I'll have to say to them, I didn't say anything to you in English. Don't be stupid. I had to get mean with some of them. But I'm saying this to say to you that that's because they can't get out of their head what they see and supplement it with what they can hear. They can't do it. They're listening with their eyes. They're forming judgments based on the first thing that they see. And that's exactly what Western women are doing to men of their own race. White women do it to white men. Black women are doing it to black men in the West. And that's what Sierra's done with Russell. That's what a lot of women have done with Russell. They can't even take what they know and factor it in. It's what they see. He's not street. He's gym, but he's football field, but he ain't street. So he ain't no real man. A lot of us think that way. So Sierra's the same way. She keeps pushing and testing boundaries with him And she didn't push and test even with Future. And she left him. Got with Russell. There's a part of her for whom Russell is her type. That's why his first date with her was to the zoo. Shout out to BGS for pointing that out. That means he didn't have to go and spend a ton of money on her. There's a part of her that likes him. But the hypocrisy in her head competing. And that's why she's testing boundaries disrespectfully. She wouldn't have tested with Future. She knows. Future's not getting cheated on as far as we know. Russell got cheated on. It was headlines. Everyone knows. That's why he divorced her. And she's still testing boundaries. Failing to realize he is physically an alpha more than the other men she's dated. He makes his living physically being an alpha. He's not a chump and a pushover. He's nice to her, but he ain't no chump and no pushover. Failing to realize these things. Failing to realize even what she knows, because if she realized what she actually knows cognitively, she wouldn't test boundaries like she does, showing herself off publicly in the ways that she's done, disrespectfully to him. See, gentlemen, what I'm saying to you is that a lot of times they cannot learn to treat you better than what they know. The worst treatment they know some other lady previously dished out to you. They're not capable of learning this in many cases. They want you to come along and step up and treat them better than other men have treated them. They're telling you they can't do it. They can't even treat you better than previous women have treated you. They want to do exactly as worse as whatever they know another woman did. It's just worse if she got away with it. It doesn't really help if they know that she didn't get away with it because you left her. Doesn't even matter if they found out that you beat a woman for something like that. That still wouldn't help. I mean, they may say, yeah, but what you gonna do? Don't ask me what the cops gonna do. Don't ask me what the divorce judge gonna do. What you gonna do? Even if you say, I already beat a broad for that. Oh, so you hit a woman? You see, you can't win. So stop playing that. And then if anything, you need to bring that standard to the table. If a woman comes along and tells you about what another man did, you look at her. And if it's one guy, you test her by telling her what a woman did to you. Now, why do I say you test her? Well, because you need to. She has no right to test you. You got to approach her anyway. What is she going to do? Come and approach you? She shot a shot at you first. Chances are she didn't, especially if she looks like anything. She wasn't going to do that. So you have a right actually to test her. So you test her by telling a similar story. Now, if she treats you better afterwards, if she treats you the same as she's been treating you afterwards, she still treats you well, then she passed that test. But you see that she can't treat you as well afterwards as she did before. If she can't treat you as well as she wants you to treat her, she failed. Done. Most of the time, they'll fail the test by simply losing interest in you and calling it off. And they probably won't explain why. But now let's say she tells you about what multiple men have done. This man did this, and this man did that, and this man did that. Then you look at her and you say, hold up. What the hell? What do you mean, what the hell? Well, I mean, obviously I'm not going to do these things, but the fact that multiple men in a row did these things says something. I'm only holding them accountable for what they did, and that's bad. But how did you keep choosing them? Oh, no, you're not going to make this about me. No, I'm not making their behavior about you. I'm making your choice consistently, and men like this about you. You keep choosing dudes that were going to do this. This means that's your type. You the one with the options, not me. You can go to the bar and pick up a dude. I can't. Go to the bar and pick up a woman. Don't say I'm talking about picking up a dude. I can't go to the bar and pick up a woman. And you need to say this. Now, right then and there, they're going to say something like, oh, so you're saying you can't get women easily. No. Men cannot. No, it's not terribly that easy for us. And that's fine. But the point is, you get approached. You get to choose from guys that approach you. I got to make the approach. We saw this early. That's how you and I met. You didn't shoot your shot at me first. So since you got options that men in general don't have, let's be honest. You chose guys that were going to do this. This means there's something in you that don't want the dudes that ain't. Because the guys that ain't going to do this outnumber the ones who will. See, if it's a pattern, you flip it on her. And you bounce. Because believe you me, if you told her this as a pattern in your past, she's out the door right off the bat. She's first going to treat you that same way. And she ain't going to be able to explain why she's doing it. Then she's going to get tired. Or she's going to get tired because you don't let her. And she's going to say, well, you let them do it. It's going to go wrong anyway. So when they tell you this as a pattern, you don't even need to test them. You out. Bye. And it's okay to have as a double standard because you have a right to do that. They don't have a right to do that to you. They will, but they don't have a right. They don't have a right to hold against you. Now, they can choose to leave, but they don't have a right to hold against you what even 10 women in your past did. Why? Because you ain't the one with all the options. Select men don't get body counts of 300 and 700 in many cases. You got to keep that in mind. So you got to understand that you're not going to be treated fairly in this regard. This is one of those double standards they have. Don't tolerate from you when in fact you should have it and not tolerate it from them. You understand, gentlemen? Don't tolerate this no more. Because like Melanie said, they don't like men that are wounded birds. They detest that. They think, oh, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. That's how they view it. You should be upset about it. Absolutely. Keep that in mind, gentlemen. One thing before I go, and I'm sorry this took 20 minutes. The most revolutionary thing we can begin to tell each other is that it's not our fault. I don't mean what you individually chose, that's on you. But collectively speaking, men's rough time with women in the West, men's failure with women in the West is not our fault. And we need to disabuse ourselves of that burden and that obligation to succeed with women. It's not our fault. It's just not easy enough. You're out here being treated badly by multiple women in a row. That ain't your fault because the options weren't yours. Bad women are hyper available anyway. If they outnumber good women or if they're outnumbered by good women, the result is the same. They're hyper available because they're not going to stop at a particular number of guys to mistreat at one time. They're going to stop only at the number they can find and they can manage. They will mistreat as many guys at one time as they can because they're bad people. Good women are not out there doing that. She's treating well one guy at a time. So your chances already beyond your control are astronomically higher to be ill-treated by women than by men. Women are the ones with the options, like I've said. Women don't seem to understand if they shoot their shot, which they don't know how to do, they could shoot their shot, especially at the guys that would not treat them this way. And they know who these guys are and they would get them. They just won't do it. They can't shoot their shot. They got less of a risk of rejection than men, and they can't tolerate that lesser risk. They can't shoot their shot. But if they did, easily they'd find guys that would treat them badly and would treat them well, and guys that would treat them well but just wouldn't be their type, or the personalities don't match. No harm, no foul. They would find this. They just simply only want the guys that will, because they only want the same few men who are stretched thin. That's it. It's not your fault, gentlemen. And we need to start telling each other that. You stop bathing, that's your fault. You live with your parents in this economy, that's not your fault. You quit brushing your teeth, that's your fault. But the money that you don't make, that's not your fault. The car that you can't afford, not your fault. and understand that you should not tolerate crap off women. And the abundance mindset is not even realistic for many men to have. Don't look for an abundance mindset. Just understand that being single is not your fault. If you spend 6 years single, that ain't your fault. So if women are acting a dang fool and you don't tolerate it because you know they wouldn't tolerate it from you, and you keep having to ditch one after the other just for that, not because you couldn't tolerate human error, but if you simply not tolerating things in them they would not tolerate from you means that you're single for 6 years at a time, that's not your fault. Most men that are not incels would be incels if they simply demanded fair treatment from women, because not enough other guys are doing that. But when you begin to understand that it ain't your fault, and enough of you realize this, more of you will simply demand fair treatment, equal treatment. Okay, the way you demand I treat you is how you're going to treat me. It's going to be fair. Just that, when enough guys start demanding that, then it no longer becomes a means by which you're guaranteed to be an incel. And even if it still was like that, it still ain't your fault. Most of you can't, you can learn to live single. You have to anyway. You can't learn to live with a guilty conscience because you've been made to think that your failure with women is your fault and not the way that the West is. Something aided Elliot Rodger before he did what he did, and that was wrong. But I can guarantee you part of it was that he felt that something was wrong with him. Somewhere down the line, he thought it's his fault he's failing because he saw other men succeeding. No, bro. People just hadn't talked about it enough for him to realize that it wasn't his fault. That's all that was. Before him, there was another guy that went on a rampage. I think he went on a rampage at a women's gym. He thought it was his fault. I'm not saying he thought it was because he said it. He couldn't understand what was going on, but deep down he thought it was his fault. Because society says this. Same thing with Manassian. Now, there could have been some things wrong with him, but his failure with women, that wasn't on him. There's nothing he could have done. Wasn't his fault. Imagine if he had simply understood, okay, I may be a failure with women, and it may be due to some things that are part of a condition with which I've been diagnosed. But if I didn't choose the condition, I got it anyway, it's not my fault. So at the very least, while having to live alone, which is unnatural, men can learn to do it, although it's not natural. I don't recommend it if you have a choice. Still, you must understand that if you had no choice but to learn to live alone, it's not your fault. Now that will make it much easier. It will at least remove the anxiety. At the very least, it will remove that. And then you'll find a sense of liberation. And I know because I've been through it. When I was being ill-treated by women, treated worse than they were treating other men, and I knew that was the case, some guys who know me will tell you that I went to ask them for advice. I didn't morally blame myself because I didn't know what it was, but I still procedurally thought that it was something that I could change, try to figure out what it was, talk to them, got confused. Until I was about 24, about to turn 25, and that lady, I think her name was Rebecca, sister though, in Atlanta, told me when I was training for a new position, I should have never, ever approached black women. Should have never done it. Should have been open to dating other races from the time I was young. I would have had a completely different experience. And told me because black women are not going to treat you equally to how they treat other men. When she finally told me, I can't even believe that I later forgot she told me that, because 9/11 was such a big turn of events. Because when she told me that, it took a weight off. When I finally realized that she was right, it took a weight off my shoulders. No more guilt. It wasn't up to me. And I wish I'd remembered that Because I started to have that same guilt about 2017. Around this time, as a matter of fact, it was today, 2017, when I had my memory jarred. Or yesterday, 2017. That was the day I had my memory jarred. Because if you go back on my channel, today, 2017, it was in the morning time. I recorded something about how some black men just don't have a choice. They're going to have to marry out. Because there was some black men and black women just didn't want. And if they did, they wasn't going to be with them anyway. And that there were more than just white and black in the world. And so these men could look other places. Southeast Asia, as an example. I mentioned that. You can go back. It's still up. That video's still up. I think it's August 1, 2017. It was the day before, actually. I'm pretty sure it was July 31st when I actually had my memory jarred. Well, actually, I was awake that night. That's what it was. The night that the 31st became the 1st of August. I was awake that night, and it was somewhere in there that I had my memory jarred, that I remembered. And that guilt that I felt before left me a second time. Wait, that's right. It was never my fault to start with. Doesn't matter what happens. I can't blame myself. I did everything I could to make sure it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't. All it is that they have their taste and are not being honest about it. And men are in a state of confusion, doing the best we can. Not to mention the financial challenges everybody faces, even when the economy's good. Not to mention that, you know what? How am I feeling the guilt about it? It wasn't up to me. It was never in my hands. And that's when I realized actually how well I had done considering what I was up against, and it wasn't my fault. Contrary to what I thought, I wasn't failing because of things that I didn't know. I was feeling guilt because of what I didn't know and didn't understand. But I wasn't doing wrong because of what I didn't know. It wasn't some secret that women had. And if there was, and you don't know the secret, how is it your fault? You don't know. They're not walking up and telling you they're keeping it a secret, waiting on you to figure it out. You're not the mysterious one. You're not the myriad in the maze waiting on them to find their way through you. They're the myriad in the maze waiting on you to somehow stumble your way through them blindly. Figure it out with no input from them, except negative input. That was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong. You can't even watch other dudes and figure out how they do it. Because if a woman realizes that you're looking, she's going to shut down in front of that dude, the one she likes. Or she'll go ahead and validate him publicly and lie about why she's validating him. Those are the two tactics. The two things that the women are going to do when it comes to the guys that actually do like, and they realize that other men are looking to them to see how they do it. These women are going, the two things they can do: turn down that dude they like, or lie about why they like him. Ain't but those two things. Because again, all they're doing is eliminating you when they're young. I mean, it's young chicks that sit up and say stuff about, I put you in the friend zone. There's a music video a girl made like that. I put you in the friend zone. Even if I like you, I put you in the friend zone. She's a young chick. She got young dudes chasing after her. She ain't even that hot. Even if I like you, I put you in the friend zone. How you going to blame yourself when it's something that's that difficult? The most revolutionary thing we can say, and that's why it's taken me a half hour to record all this. Start saying to each other, is it ain't your fault? I mean, there are things that are men's fault individually, like for anybody. But collectively speaking, we need to start looking at each other and saying, it ain't your fault. Collectively, that's one thing we got to start doing. This leads me to my last point, and I'm done. And thank you for bearing with me. These ladies that are now coming out and saying, I'm going to tell you the secrets that women won't admit, they're not always lying. A lot of times when they tell you these things, these confessions, they're telling the truth, but they're acting like each one's trying to act like she's the one coming out and telling you this because, well, she's on your side. They're doing that because times are hard. That's all it is. If you can feel the economic crunch on you, on your own personal finances, they can. So don't let them come with that. Take the confessions and take the informations. Listen to see whatever new confessions you can learn from them. That's fine, but give them nothing in exchange. Oh, gentlemen, I'm on your side now. Melanie King might be. I'm not calling her this. Plus, she's probably doing well on her YouTube channel, which is due to men, as an example. And that's fine. And she's even talked about the work she does not have to do on her channel to make the same amount of money that a guy would have to. She's mentioned that before. I can't remember which one it is. But there are other women that are just now beginning to come out on TikTok and tell us the stuff that we already know in this space. Like they're making some new confessions. Don't give them anything. Listen, take, and don't give. What they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, you know, now I'm honest. I'm one of the truth tellers. And there are women like that, yeah. But if they weren't doing this before the financial crunch, don't even give them positive feedback. Most you could say is thanks for telling the truth. We already knew that, though. Because what they're looking for is to get some credit. Just like you got guys that'll throw you under the bus trying to simp for some draws they ain't never gonna get. These are women that are willing to finally throw some other women under the bus to simp for some being taken care of, and they should not get it. Because let's be honest, simps don't get the lips. You know, I'm talking about the vertical lips, the walls. Unless she turns on her side, then they become horizontal. You know, dim wall. They don't get that. Now, the only reason I say they should is because women themselves act like they should. And then they don't give them no draws. They don't validate them like that. So I'm only saying they should based on women's own rules. That's all. Now women are even sitting up and saying bitter things like, you know, I posted a picture of a lady saying some men think they're going to support their way into the draws. Could you please move out the way so I can see the N-words I'm actually going F? I mean, that's an actual post the lady put up. And I shared it. And likewise, these ladies, though they are being honest, they should not get any financial support from any. There should be no man that comes up and takes care of them. If they get married, they should get married while having to go 50-50. And if they're Muslim, they should have to get into a misyar marriage where they give up financial rights. That should be the only option. And if my daughters do the same thing that these broads are doing, that should be the only option for them too. If my daughters get up in age, and I knew they were pistols for men when they were younger, I'm going to tell them, I will look for you a husband, but you need to give up your financial rights. You waited till you were 35. You had a bad attitude towards men when you were younger. I didn't disown you, but I love you. I absolutely do. And I'm going to love my grandkids. But you need to give up some kind of right. Free them from an obligation to make up for the fact that you waited till now to decide that you were going to appreciate a man more than you did when you were younger. This is something I got to do with them if they act this way. So I'm prepared to be fair. I may not tell y'all my business when it comes down to that time and tell their business. But I'm letting you know now that the standards are the same even for them. Just like when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about stealing and he was getting ready to amputate the hands of a rich woman because she didn't return people's property to them. Barden didn't return it. She didn't even steal it by stealth or rob them. She just, can I borrow it? And she never gave it back. And there was proof of that. She was about to amputate. And people came in trying to tell him, you can't. What did you say? I can't. His response was, are you trying to intervene where the punishments of God are already set? If Fatima stole, I cut off her hand. And Fatima was his daughter. So that man was saying the rules apply, period. He even revealed the verse in which Allah warned him that if he himself disbelieved, Allah would throw him in hell. He was the prophet. Peace and prayers be to him. And when Allah revealed that verse to warn him, you don't turn back on this. He repeated the verse to everybody else. He didn't hide the verse. So he was fair and just with these rules. And what I'm saying is I've already prepared myself mentally for the same thing if it comes down to that. This is how important it is what I'm telling you right now. So to rehash, number one, stop trying to be the first one to treat a woman better than every other man's treated. It ain't going to work. And you had a right to demand this from them or they get lost. Because you're going to reward them if they do that. And they won't do it. Number two, it ain't your fault. All the men you ain't had, it ain't your fault. Unless you did something within your control and knowledge that drove them away. And you knew it would drive them away because they told you or they showed you, it ain't your fault. So even if you even if you did something, you made a wrong decision, but it was an honest mistake. You didn't cognitively know that it was going to drive them off and you made that mistake. It ain't your fault. You were too nice. You didn't know. It ain't your fault. You found out that being nice didn't work. So you became a jerk, set boundaries. They ditched on you anyway, called you arrogant, stuck up. That ain't your fault because they didn't tell you what a balance was. It didn't matter what you did at that point. How are you supposed to know? It ain't your fault. You lost out on an opportunity because you couldn't read a mind. It ain't your fault. I don't care if you lost out on opportunities because you showed up dressed in a bright yellow suit. Neon canary yellow. And I don't even know if that color exists. Looking like a son yourself. Showed up for the sit down and she and her dad had to put on shades, but that's because you heard that she liked them bright colors and that's what you wore. It ain't your fault. Now, if you just did it to be audacious and no one told you she liked that, that's your fault. But if that's the case, would you have done that? You see, that's the second lesson to understand. And we need to start telling each other. Collectively speaking, we need to tell each other it ain't your fault. You got a 0 body count and you 28. That ain't your fault. I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about the rules. And then the third point, last one that I just made. You already heard that one. So thanks for listening. Sorry it took 40 minutes. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum. And as always, black, heterosexual, non-select male power. Just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.